Why does Africa have the highest teenage pregnancy rates? In 2024, Africa stands out for having the highest teenage pregnancy rates globally. A shocking fact, the top 28 countries with the most teenage pregnancies are all located in Africa, and 47 out of 54 African countries rank in the top 100 globally. What's driving this trend, and what are the factors that make it difficult to change? In this video, we explore the cultural, economic, and policy-based reasons behind this issue, as well as the role of education and international efforts to help. The causes of teenage pregnancy in Africa are complex and multi-layered. One of the most significant drivers is poverty. Many girls, especially in rural areas, face a lack of economic opportunities, leading them to early marriages or transactional relationships in exchange for financial stability. Families struggling with poverty sometimes see early marriage as a way to alleviate financial burdens, essentially treating young girls as economic assets. In some cases, transactional sex becomes a means of survival. Another contributing factor is gender inequality. Across many parts of Africa, young girls are still subject to deep-rooted traditional gender roles that prioritize their duties as wives and mothers. These cultural norms often encourage early marriage and childbearing, leaving girls with little control over their reproductive health. For many of these girls, pregnancy is not a choice but a consequence of the environment they are raised in. Cultural and social pressures play a major role, too. In communities where early marriage is seen as a norm or even a status symbol, girls are encouraged to marry and start families before they even complete secondary school. This puts immense pressure on girls to conform to these social expectations, further driving teenage pregnancy rates. One of the biggest challenges in combating teenage pregnancy is the lack of comprehensive sex education. In many African countries, discussions about sex and reproductive health are still considered taboo. Cultural and religious beliefs heavily influence how much, or how little, information is shared with young people, leaving many teenagers uninformed about how to protect themselves from early pregnancies. In countries like Uganda, for instance, sex education programs often focus on promoting abstinence rather than teaching about contraception and sexual health. While abstinence is an important part of sex education, it doesn't equip teenagers with the full spectrum of knowledge needed to make informed choices about their reproductive health. In addition to the absence of comprehensive education, even where programs do exist, they are often underfunded and poorly implemented. Many schools lack trained teachers who can deliver accurate, non-judgmental information about reproductive health. As a result, many teenagers turn to unreliable sources for information, further contributing to risky behaviors that lead to unintended pregnancies. Economic instability in African countries directly correlates with high rates of teenage pregnancy. Girls in impoverished communities are more vulnerable to early pregnancy due to the lack of access to education and healthcare. In countries like Niger and Chad, where poverty is widespread, teen pregnancy rates soar because girls have fewer opportunities to pursue education and are instead pushed into early marriages. Many African governments also face policy gaps when it comes to addressing teenage pregnancy. While there have been efforts to implement reproductive health programs, political will is often lacking, and the necessary resources aren't allocated. Weak healthcare systems in some regions mean that young people, particularly in rural areas, don't have easy access to contraceptives or family planning services. Without the infrastructure to provide reproductive healthcare, many girls have no way to prevent unintended pregnancies. For example, in Malawi, efforts to provide better sex education and access to healthcare have been met with resistance from some local communities. Many parents fear that teaching their children about sex will encourage promiscuity, despite evidence showing that comprehensive sex education leads to lower rates of teenage pregnancy. Without policy enforcement and cultural buy-in, progress remains slow. Despite the challenges, there are several initiatives and programs working to reduce teenage pregnancy across Africa. Organizations like UNICEF, Plan International, and Marie Stopes International are playing vital roles in providing access to contraception, health services, and education. These organizations work closely with local governments and communities to change the narrative around reproductive health, For instance, Kenya has seen some success with programs aimed at keeping girls in school longer, as education is one of the most effective ways to prevent teenage pregnancy. The Global Partnership for Education has been instrumental in helping African nations like Kenya, Rwanda, and Ethiopia implement policies that keep girls in school, thus delaying early pregnancies. Community-based interventions, like the Girls Not Brides initiative, are working to eliminate child marriage and create more opportunities for girls to pursue education. These programs focus on changing social norms, raising awareness, and providing girls with the resources and knowledge they need to make informed choices about their futures. To effectively combat teenage pregnancy in Africa, there needs to be a multifaceted approach that addresses the underlying causes. Governments must invest in education and healthcare, ensuring that young people have access to comprehensive sex education and reproductive health services. Empowering girls to stay in school, improving economic conditions, and providing resources to delay childbearing are critical components of a long-term solution. There also needs to be a shift in cultural attitudes toward early marriage and childbearing. Communities must be engaged in conversations about the benefits of delaying pregnancy, and parents should be encouraged to support their daughters in completing their education. Moreover, governments must take a proactive stance in enforcing policies that protect the rights of young girls and provide them with the tools they need to build a better future. Africa's high teenage pregnancy rates are a complex issue that require coordinated efforts from governments, NGOs, and local communities. By addressing the root causes of poverty, improving education, and shifting cultural norms, it's possible to reduce teenage pregnancy and create brighter futures for millions of African girls. While progress is being made, there is still much work to be done to ensure that girls across the continent have the opportunity to thrive.